Hello everyone and welcome back. I'm Sarah Liz and I have another emergency card tutorial for you today, as promised. In this tutorial, we are going to make two cards from two pieces of 6x6 coordinating pattern paper, one piece of solid colored cardstock, one piece of white cardstock, and then you'll need your circle punch or die cut for your sentiment later on. This guide is combining two ideas. The first is from my emergency card kit free printable video that came out earlier this month. It is this card. It's a fun fold and free for subscribers. You can download the template on how to cut all these pieces, what sizes they are, and there's a video tutorial that walks you through it. And then it also comes with a sheet of printable sentiments. This is completely free for subscribers. And these are all birthday sentiments. So I have reached out to all of you, and if you have requests for what kind of sentiments you want to see next month, let me know. I have not put that together yet, and I'm just making plans for what to make coming up. So that's the first card. The second card is inspired by Crafty Owl's Sheetload of cards. You guys, you know, this is Sassy's LLC. You know, every time I hear Sheetload of cards that I am just giggling. So she put this one out on January 1st. And as soon as I saw this 2-inch circle, I knew that this was going to be great for using my emergency sentiments. The Sheetload of cards is pretty awesome. It comes out every month, and she shows you how to make just a giant pile of cards. So this one makes 8 cards using 2 pieces of 12 by 12 pattern paper and 8 pieces of solid cardstock. I don't tend to make multiples of the exact same card, so I don't usually make a whole sheet load. I will sometimes use it as a card sketch to get started. So that's the other card we're making. And on the printable, you will see at the bottom, there are links to both of her videos, the one with the free printable where she explains Sheetload of cards, and one for the process video. Throughout the month, she comes out with all kinds of other stuff to show you how to switch that up or how to use products more creatively. So definitely check those out. We're going to make this sketch our own. Mine is also a little bit smaller than the one she made. This is a mini slimline card. So a lot of us are familiar with like an A2 size. This one is going to fit in a 6 3/4 business size envelope. I got these at my grocery store. They're nothing special, though I did like that these don't have any security printing on the inside. As a downside for these, they're a little thin, and I'm picky. You can kind of see the adhesive coming through the flap. So a while ago, I upgraded to these jam paper envelopes. It's a slightly different size. These are, these are a number 7 coin envelope, I believe. I'll link them below. And I like that they have this fancy flap and that I don't have to lick them. And it's a little bit thicker than the 6 3/4. So you can't see through the envelope. I feel like my card is more protected. The size is close. Okay, so this one, the 7, is a little bit taller and a little bit narrower, but our card will fit in either envelope. So use whatever you have or whatever you can find. We are going to make 2 sets of cards today. So 4 cards in total, and I am using paper from Dare to Be Artsy. I just picked this up. And this one is a 12 by 12 paper pack, and they're double-sided papers. It's a nice weight. These are, I would guess, like a 65 pound, right? And it makes making cards like this really easy. I know that the front of this paper coordinates with the back of this paper. So you certainly could cut this into 6 by 6 and then use the front as one pattern and the back as another pattern. I'm actually using 2 separate papers from this pack. So I'm going to use the bees, and then I'm going to use these sort of mint teal flowers because I really loved that combo. So that's for our first set of cards. For our second set of cards, I'm using some Dare to Be Artsy paper that came in a 6 by 6 pack. And really what I'm getting is about half of that 12 by 12 pack. It's one sheet of each pattern, but they've cut them into 6 by 6. So there were 4 of each of these in my pack. I love these flowers. Look how pretty that is. And the butterflies. I've already used a bunch of this paper. You guys, I got it 2 days ago. In our printable, we have 3 pages. The first is showing you the layouts for the 2 cards. We have card A and card B, and that's important because when we get to the cutting guides, it's going to label every piece that we're cutting as belonging to one card or the other. Then we have the cutting guide for the 2 8.5 by 11 inch pieces of paper. This one is for your card bases, and this is for your colored cardstock. And finally, we have our 2 patterned paper pieces, and I've color coded them, either pattern number 1 or pattern number 2. Anything that's in gray is going to be scrap. So there's almost no scrap in here, which I really, really love. You'll notice then things are labeled to let you know which card they belong to, and I will remind you of that along the way. Let's get started. I wanted to keep this as efficient as possible. So I have a large scoreboard here, and we are going to cut our card bases first. And the easiest way to do this is to create this score line at 3 inches before you cut the cardstock. So I'm just going to score it 3 inches all the way down, and then I am done with my scoreboard. If you have a small scoreboard or no scoreboard at all, just cut your card bases first, and then you're folding them in half. Next, I'm going to cut my card bases, and I'm going to line this up at 6 inches. My score line is right here at 3 inches, and I am going to cut. This piece is scrap. I like that I've kept the biggest piece possible. I use scraps of white cardstock all the time, so even though this is pretty big, that doesn't really bother me. Then I'm going to rotate this, and I am going to cut it at 6 inches. This gives me 2 card bases, one that is 6 by 6 and one that is 5 by 6. This 6 by 5 is going to be for card A. So I'm going to fold that in half, and it ultimately makes me a 3 by 5 card that we're going to mount on that A2 card base. And then this one is going to make a 3 by 6 inch card that is our mini slimline. Before we started, I cut out one of those B's from a piece of 6 by 6 paper. I took the 12 by 12 and I divided it into quarters because I was making a couple of cards. So I just sort of bubble cut around him. I know, because I've planned this out already, that that B is going to be for card B. So my first basket, this white basket, is for card B, and the gray basket will be for card A. Here, my 6 by 5 is for card A. So here's this one, and I'm going to put that in that basket. And then this 6 by 3 is going to be for card B, and I'm going to put that in my B basket. So card A is my A2, card B is the one with the B, and that's how my brain is trying to keep them straight. Next, I'm going to cut my 8.5 by 11 piece of solid colored cardstock. I've picked a dusty pink for this one, and on my cutting guide, you can see that first cut needs to be right here. So it is 5 inches from the top or 6 inches from the bottom. And I'm going to cut right up through the middle. And here is my 6 inch by 8.5 inch piece. And I'm just going to set that aside. I'm going to start with this top piece. Those cuts are a little bit easier. First, I need a piece of 3 by 5. So I am going to cut that piece off, and my template says that that belongs to card A. That's my A2 card, my gray basket, and I'm going to stick it over here. Next, I need to rotate and cut off a piece that is 5.5 by 3.25. This is already 5.5. So I am going to slide this to 3.25. On this trimmer, I have measurements on the right-hand side up to 1.5, which is really handy. So this piece is labeled B. It also has an asterisk on it. The asterisk means that when we go to decorate it later, there are options, and all of those asterisk pieces are making your optional decorator pieces. So I'm going to stick that in my B basket, my white one. This is what I have left. It's this 4.25 by 5.5. That is my A for my A2 card. So I'll put that in the other basket. Next, we're gonna work on this bottom piece, and I'm actually gonna start over on the side. These first 3 pieces are 6 inches, and that's what I already have. So I need to remove those first. So my 3 by 6 comes first, and that's for basket B. Next, I have a 3/4 inch piece. And again, I'm gonna measure that one on the right-hand side. It's just a little bit easier. Also for basket B. And then 3/8 of an inch. Let's talk about 1/8 of an inch. On my cutter, all of these big sections are a 1/4 inch, right? I have 4 quarters in a hole. So 1 inch has 4 quarters. And then up at the top, you'll see there's a slightly longer tick mark in the middle between. 1/8 of an inch is just somewhere in between. My brain doesn't like to think in 3/8 or 5/8 or 7/8. So I always sort of round it down to the closest 1/4 inch. When I'm looking at 3/8 of an inch, it's a 1/4 inch plus 1/8. So on my right-hand side, here's a 1/4 inch, and then I'm gonna go to that next tick mark, and that's the additional 1/8. And it's this tiny little piece, okay? And that is basket B. Next, I have all of these pieces connected. So I'm gonna rotate and take the piece off the bottom. I need 1 inch coming off the bottom for basket B. And then I rotate back, and I'm gonna take 2 inches off of this side. So my 2-inch piece goes in the basket, and what is left is 2 3/8 by 5 inches. This is just big enough for me to cut my 2 circles for my sentiments. So I am using a 2-inch circle punch from EK Success. I got it on Amazon, and I've had mine for a really long time. I will link it if I can find it. Sometimes Amazon has them, sometimes they don't. So if they don't, I will link to some other shops that might have it. This piece is now scrap, and I'm gonna put 1 circle in each of my baskets. So that walks us through the colored cardstock. Next, we're gonna cut our patterned paper. So I'm moving on to the next page of our cutting guide. This is the All the Buzz paper from Dare to Be Artsy. I am gonna start with this top one, and that's gonna be my bees. And it's telling me my first cut needs to be this piece right along the side. This is a directional pattern, right? My bees need to be flying this way. So keep your paper rotated the same way it is on the template. This says to take a 1/4 inch off the side. I'm gonna orient my patterned paper this way and take a piece off the side. That way I know my bees are gonna be going the right direction on my card. So I'm just measuring it on the right-hand side of my trimmer. And I am going to keep that piece. So that's basket B. Then I'm gonna rotate, and this says to take 1/8 of an inch off the bottom. So that's just my very first tick mark. It doesn't seem like much, but it's really important. If we don't do this step, then we don't get that nice border around our card. This piece is scrap. I'm gonna let that one go. Okay, I'm rotating back. I now have 2 pieces that are both going to be 2 7/8. So that's 2 3/4 plus 1/8. And I'm going to cut that in half. Okay, so these are the same size, and I am going to put one of them in basket B, and then the other one, I'm going to take 1 inch off the bottom. So I'm going to put it right there and just cut that off. This piece is basket B, this piece is basket A. Next, we're going to move on to pattern paper number 2. This one is not directional for me, so I can orient it however I want. My first cut is at the bottom, and I need to take 5/8 off of this piece. So 5/8 is going to be a 1/2 inch plus 1/8. And I'm going to cut that off. That goes in basket B. Then I'm going to rotate it, and I'm taking 4 1/4 inches. This is nearly A2. You can kind of see on my trimmer, it's marking that A2, and you can see how this fits really nicely, and there's like an equal border all the way around. That's what we want on our card, so I know my cut is right. That goes into basket A, and then finally, I am gonna take 1/2 inch here off of this piece. That 1/2 inch is scrap. And then this one's gonna go in basket B. We're gonna start with card A, and I have all of my pieces in the gray basket. So I'm gonna take those out and just lay them out so we can see what we have. We have our base, our pattern paper, our 3x5 card, another base layer pattern paper, and our sentiment circle. So I'm gonna glue these together using wet glue. My favorite glue is Barely Art because it comes in this fine tip bottle. Sometimes that's helpful because I'm putting together a complicated die cut, but honestly, it also just keeps me from squeezing a whole bunch of glue on the back that can make the paper wet and then it warps. When I'm using my wet glue, I just keep it upside down in, like, that's a baby wipe. I reuse that over and over. I just spray it with some water before I get started. It also gives me a little bit of wiggle room. So on these pieces, there is a 1/16 of an inch border. We cut only 1/8 of an inch smaller than the pink paper. So when I go to cut that, oh, that one got weird. That's okay. When I go to cut that, see, that border is not very big. And actually, I have less of a border on the top and bottom than I was expecting. That's okay, because I used my wet glue, I can wiggle that around before it's really stuck on there. If I were using a tape runner, I don't have that wiggle room. I've gotten a bunch of questions in the last couple of weeks about why I use wet glue, why I don't use a Xyron. Honestly, I've been making cards for over 10 years, and what I have found is that if I use those adhesives, and then I put my card together, I'm just gluing this onto my card base, by the way. And then I put that card together. If it sits in my stash for a couple of years, and sometimes they do, the emergency cards, right? I wait until the card is right for that person. If I pulled them out a couple years later and I used tape runner, a lot of times they fall apart. Like the pieces literally aren't holding together anymore. And then I have to go back and re-glue everything. So here is our first card. If you want a more detailed explanation of how all of those pieces went together, there is a video tutorial walking you through all of that, and I will link it in the top corner here or in the video description, and you can check that out. But this one is super easy, okay? And it comes together really quickly. If you haven't seen the emergency card video, I have already punched out a whole bunch of sentiments, and I just wait until I know who I'm giving this to, and the sentiment fits right on top there. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of birthday sentiments in that original video as well. They're free for subscribers. So check that out if you don't want to have to stamp or come up with your own sentiment here. For card B, we have a lot more pieces than we did for card A, and that's because I want to give you some options. Okay, so I will show you one or two of those options for this card, and then when we next make the next set of cards, I'll show you the other options for card B as well. I have my card base, and then I'll have my pink piece, my pattern paper, another pink piece, more pattern paper, my sentiment, and then I'm decorating. Okay, and that's what all of this is about. So I am just going to set that in a little tidy pile over there, my B as well, and I am going to glue these pieces together to get started. I'm actually going to wait to glue it to my card base. I want it to lay really flat while I'm doing, there's a piece later that's slightly complicated, but it's so cute. So I'll show you that in a minute. So I'm going to add this larger piece to my pink piece, and remember there's just a tiny little border all the way around. So I am going to wiggle that right into place. Okay. If you want a 1/4 inch border, right? If those cuts are easier for you, if assembling is easier for you, my original tutorial uses a 1/4 inch margin, and Crafty Al's video uses 1/4 inch margins. So again, those are linked below. Then I'm adding my flower paper to this pink piece. And we will just wiggle that one. And then we will add this right down the middle of this card base. You may have noticed on my channel, since that original emergency card video, there are a couple of videos for card kits, and then there are videos for some really, really elaborate cards. There are two types of cards in my craft room. And the first is a giant pile of emergency cards. And these are for people that I love enough to give a handmade card to, but I know that it's probably going in the trash within the week. But then for people I know will keep them and really put them on display, or treasure them, or at least know how much work I put into it. I love to make interactive cards and really elaborate cards. So that's why there's sort of two different types of card videos on my channel. Let me know which ones you like the most, or if you like that there's both. I'm pretty committed to keeping both available, but especially for those interactive cards, I've been asking which ones you want tutorials for. So check those out. I'm going to hang on to my sentiment, and I'm going to show you the options here for decorating. Okay. And I'm actually just going to assemble all of these so you kind of see what it looks like. I have this teeny tiny strip. Okay. That's my 1/4 inch strip. And I am going to add that to this 3/8 inch piece of pink paper. And you'll see there's still a border all the way down. Whoops. It's not straight. You guys, mine are never straight. They're just not. I have to wiggle. Then I have this piece of pink paper, and there's two that are pretty similar, but I want the one that is 6 inches. So the margins on here will match the margins for everything else. And it's going to go all the way up to the end on the short side, and then leave that strip of pink right at the top and bottom. And then for this one, the original sketch from Crafty Al had a strip that went kind of like this. I don't have a piece quite big enough for that. So if you want to do it that way, what I do is there's a 1-inch piece that is exactly the same width. I do that, and then I just cut this down the middle. Okay. And I'm cheating. I'm going to add a little bit of glue to one side, and I'm going to wiggle this so I have about that same border on one side, and then I'll do the same on the other. I love that this Dare to Be Artsy paper is a little bit thicker, right? It is a cardstock, not a super thick one, but when I'm working with a pattern paper that's pretty thin, it's hard to use wet glue. That's why you'll sometimes see me using a tape runner, even though it's not my favorite. Okay, so I could do it that way and sort of add that on there, but look, that is not, got a bee butt on it. That is not an attractive piece of patterned paper. I suppose I could have looked at the back. I maybe could have used that yellow strip. Actually, that would have been really pretty. Too bad it's already glued. Okay, so that's one option. I also have this little strip right here, and on the second card, the second set of cards, we're gonna use this little strip instead. But again, it's sort of a weird piece of patterned paper. Maybe I could try to like line it up with that bee, and it's cute. It's like part of the bee is peeking through the paper, but instead I'm gonna use this one. I'm gonna put this at a diagonal. Which way do I want it? Maybe this way. It doesn't really matter either way. I'm going to use a piece of temporary tape. This is just highlighter tape. It isn't crazy cheap, but it's not overly expensive, I guess. What I like about it is that it's so thin, you have a ton on the roll. So I just flipped this over, and I'm using my long-handled scissors to cut that off. So it is flush with the side of that card. Okay. But I actually don't want that. I still want that pink to peek through. So I'm going to move this. If I do it here, the pink shows. And then I want to move it the same distance over the pattern paper. See, there's a little bit of that bee poking through. Tape it down. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to cut the other side. Okay. So these two pieces are scrap. And I now have a piece of pattern paper that runs diagonally across my card. and you can still see the pink on either side. So I'm going to glue that down, and I'm just going to be real careful here. Again, wet glue is my champion. It just does me right every time. Okay. And so on either side, I still have kept my pink border. Next, I'm going to add my sentiment. I think I want it on this lower side here. Sometimes I will add like a little extra paper right behind here as a shim so that it doesn't get crushed in the mail, but I am feeling lazy today and I am not going to do that. Okay, so that's where my sentiment is going to go. Here's the thing. I bought this paper because I loved the bees and I just covered up all of my bees. So that's why I took that extra piece of pattern paper and I cut out a bee. I just left a little border all the way around him, and I'm going to put him right here, I think, flying around on my card. I added a bunch of sticky foam pieces to the back of my bee so that he didn't look all wonky when I set him on here, because there is enough of a shift in the dimension of the card that was going to be a problem. But I left space where the feet are so that I can still slide my sentiment right in there. And that's not going to be a problem when I go to add that. Okay, now that all of our pieces are on here, I'm going to glue this to my card base. And I do try to get to the edges, especially on the card base, so that it doesn't catch on anything as someone is pulling it in and out of the envelope. Okay. So those are our two cards from this first set. We have our A2 card, and then this is our mini slimline card that will fit beautifully inside of our number 7 coin envelope. If you don't like to fussy cut, you don't want to have to do that out of a piece of pattern paper, I have some ideas for you at the end, so stick around. Hey everybody, VoiceOver Sarah here. As we assemble this second set of cards, I wanted to be able to speed it up since there's a fair bit of repetition and just point out the things that are different or important. This is card A. It's our fun fold. I got a lot of questions about how does this card stand up on display, and the answer is that it doesn't. I have a video coming out on January 19th as part of a Spellbinders blog hop where I will give you an idea for how to add something to that card to make it stand up on display if you're interested. As we're working on this second card, you may be wondering how you get a hold of this template. This is free for subscribers, and if you've watched this far in the video, all you have to do is click on the subscribe button, and then down in the bottom of the video description, you will find a link to click on to get to the free printable. Here I am assembling our 3 different decorator options for the mini slimline card. This last one, remember, we don't have a piece of navy blue cardstock that is quite thick enough to give us our extra borders around the outside. So I'm cutting it in half and wiggling it around with my wet glue. I have found that patterned papers that are directional are the most challenging for that piece. Otherwise, I think the original template works really well and it's a lovely design. On this card, I want to use this thin strip. So I'm going to bring that in from the blue margin and then in a little bit further, just like we did with the diagonal, but this time we're going straight. And I'm going to clip that off. Then I'm going to line this first one up with the piece that's left over because I actually want 2 of these strips on this card. If I'm honest, I was just playing around here and I love how this ended up. They look like little pieces of ribbon and I'm kind of bummed that I end up covering up so much of it with my navy blue circle. I might make another version of this and see if I can leave more of that showing. I do have those other decorator pieces left. So after we adhere this to the card base, I am going to add those to the insides of our cards to finish them off. So this first piece is going to fit perfectly. I'm going to add a little glue and create a little white border all the way around the outside. I don't want them tucked all the way into the crease of the card or it doesn't close very well. And so here I'm just trimming down that other strip. This one is directional, but I still liked it better than the other piece that was left, and I'm just going to tuck that onto the bottom of this second card, and that'll finish them up for today. Those are our cards for today. I hope you like them and that you'll give this a try. I do want to show you a couple other examples and ways that you might be able to simplify this. So I have made so many sets of these cards. And these two sets I made using card kits. This is from a really old Spellbinders kit. I don't think it's available any longer, but I loved that I was able to use the ephemera to dress up this pretty plain pattern purple paper. Also, I wanted to show you, I messed this up when I cut it. So I don't have that dark purple border all the way around. And that's okay. If you make a funky cut, just move things around, wiggle it with your wet glue, it'll be fine. I actually really like how that turned out with the offset layers. And then this pair of cards I made with the Spellbinders January 2023 Quick and Easy card kit. I have a bunch of videos using this kit because I loved it so much. Here I've used the sun as a place to put my sentiment instead of a gray circle. I thought that was really pretty and just a fresh way to create a spot for our sentiment. Over here, I just fussy cut something out from my pattern paper that I liked, but if you don't like fussy cutting, this is a really great option for you. In those kits, you get so many die cut pieces. Look at all of this. This is huge. I have made 8 cards and 2 fancy gift card holders with this kit, and I still have all of these die cut pieces, a bunch of gem stickers, some puffy stickers with sentiments on them, a bunch of chipboard stickers, some more pattern paper, stuff that I haven't used yet. I will get to it. I loved that kit so much. So I will link those videos below as well in case you're interested. The kits are pretty affordable. They're $29.50 US and the shipping is free. And when you subscribe to one of their clubs like this card kit, you then get 10% off everything at Spellbinders for the rest of the month. So I subscribed to a couple other clubs besides the one they sent me. There's really great ones this month. Take a look at that. I appreciate you spending this time with me. I hope you'll give this a try. If you want the free printable, please subscribe. Give this a thumbs up. Leave me a comment below if there are particular sentiments you're looking for in February, and I will see you next time.